Now
Yes.
I can start saying something else. But I mean, Bob was extremely versatile in what he was able to play. Uh, I mean, some of the records that he was the most proud of, at least in casual conversations and things like that, were the records that he made for Anders Oman. Anders Oman was is a prominent um, amateur clarinet playing um, lawyer in Stockholm. Anders was so prominent a lawyer that he represented Sweden at the United Nations for on the courts and things like that. I mean, he was a major person. I mean, at some of the dealings that I had with Anders in the early 1990s, he was the head of the Royal Swedish Music Academy. He was a big deal. And but Anders recorded Bob sometimes playing jazz, but he recorded him playing Mozart. And Bob did that, and he loved it a lot and was good at it. I don't know whether he, played the Webern quintet or whatever, but he was a very good clarinet player playing classical Mozart or Brahms or whoever. And interestingly enough, I never talked to him a lot about that, but I did talk to Kenny DeVerne about it. Kenny didn't play that, but that's what he listened to. Kenny DeVerne would call me up and say, I've got a new Wilhelm Furtwängler record, and you've got to listen to this, or there's a new Brahms quintet or something. But Bob could do it all. I mean, for a while, he was involved with George Wein and the New York Repertory Orchestra that George had put together. And and he was the music director on the Cotton Club film. And that's more or less doing Duke Ellington and stuff like that, which doesn't sound like Dixieland to me. So I don't think he got very many calls from the Asunto brothers to come down and be with the Dukes. Anyway, not to beat a dead horse, but anybody who says that Bobby is a Dixieland clarinet, and there's nothing wrong with being a Dixieland clarinet player, nothing at all, but he was so much broader than that. He could, my feeling is, if I had to pick out my favorite Bob Wilbers, to me, when he was at his best on his soprano saxophone, the curved soprano saxophone, he played that as well and as in as pretty a fashion as the best Johnny Hodges on alto. And that was what I enjoyed the most. The he could play pretty and he could play hot on the soprano, and that's what I personally liked the best about what Bob did. And he did it extraordinarily well, and he did it for a long, long time. I mean, he was well into his 90s when he died a couple of weeks ago. And I think the last time I heard him, he came to New York a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3, and he played with Vince Giordano, once or twice, and I heard that. I'd also heard him, what's that funny little place? He had come in from England, and there's a basement room at the corner of 7th Avenue and Christopher Street that has ping pong tables and pool tables.
Fat Cat.
Fat Cat. He was playing down there. He came in and sat in with somebody.
Terry Waldo, probably.
No, it wasn't Terry
Oh.
Waldo. It was a couple of horn players. And maybe the Andersons or something. I don't know. But he was terrific and just blew his head off. And I got the... No, and there was another time I heard him in a duet with somebody. But anyway...
He did a duet gig that I videoed of with the pianist Yehuda Sherry.
I don't know.
No, okay.
I didn't see that.
It was spectacular.
But anyway, it was, I guess the first time I really heard him, I probably, when I was a teenager, in upstate New York, scrounging around in junk stores, I probably found a Bob Wilber Wildcats on a 78 and listened to that, but that's just talking. I couldn't prove it. Although I'm sure if I went and looked on the 78 shelf in the country, they are all arranged by label and number, so I could find it. So, but that's basically, and the interesting thing, another interesting thing is that Bob may be the last or next to the last or whatever of the people who were at least nominally associated with Eddie Condon. It'd be hard to think of, who actually played at the club, that is the Uptown Club. And actually Bobby played at the Downtown Club too. But he may have been, and because he was a young person when he started doing it, and he died at 93. So somebody would have had to have been younger than him to have, I don't know.
There's one person who comes to mind, the pianist Johnny Varro.
Johnny, yeah, that's right.
Who's still with us and playing.
Well, that's good.
Yes, we applaud
He
this.
probably really likes that.
Yes.
So, but in any event, Bob Wilber started playing, on records in 1945 or 40, whenever the Wildcats started, and continued for a long time after that. Had quite a run.
From my perspective, I went to interview him in 2015, I think, and I was sitting across from the man who had played with Baby Dodds, who had played with Sid Catlett, who had been at the Nice Festival in 1948. He was an extraordinary musician, but he also, as you say, it was our last link to that world.
Yeah, and it's a pity. But time marches on, and I heard a thing the other night at the Jazz Gallery where with Julian Losh and Chris Davis was phenomenal. And each one of them is at least 32 or 33 and playing their butts off. They didn't Dixieland either. Although, if one of the things that is bouncing around on the internet a great deal is a fun little band that's run by Al Cohn's granddaughter,
Shay Cohn,
called Tuba Skinny.
Yes.
And they play the most wonderful songs. And I heard one of their sets the other day, and at one point Shay said, it's fun they were playing some town in France, said that they had been there 10 years earlier, and they said, we remember arriving on our bicycles. They didn't even have a bus. They had bicycled from town to town in France. But it's a sweet little band, playing nice tunes and in tune and that kind of thing. So, but that's what I know about Bob, and we'll miss him a lot.
You're not alone.
Yep.